You won't believe what they discovered about this mysterious 1903 photograph. They say a picture paints 1,000 words, but some photos are so mysterious they've puzzled people for decades, even centuries. From an unidentified witness to a strange family photo taken long ago, here are 20 rare historical photos that scientists cannot explain. Number 20. Babushka Lady. This photo shows the Babushka Lady. It might seem like an ordinary photo of a woman, but her identity is one of the biggest unsolved mysteries in history. The story of the Babushka Lady begins on the 22nd of November in 1963. The Dealey Plaza in Dallas, Texas, went into a state of chaos after the assassination of President John F. Kennedy. In one of the photos captured that day, one lady stood out from the crowd. Named for the distinctive headscarf she wore, reminiscent of those worn by elderly Russian women, this woman appeared to be holding a camera, possibly filming the very moment the shots that ended the life of JFK were fired. Despite the FBI's efforts to locate her and any potential film she might have taken, she was never identified and never made any effort to come forward. There are several reasons why the Babushka Lady is known. While most people in the vicinity reacted with shock and fear, running for cover, she remained remarkably composed, continuing to film almost as if she knew the events that would transpire that day. This unusual calmness has fueled speculation and numerous conspiracy theories about her true identity. Despite numerous investigations and the passage of decades, the identity of the Babushka Lady remains unknown. Some speculate she was a spy, while others suggest she might have been an ordinary citizen caught amidst the chaos. To this day, this photo remains one of history's biggest mysteries. Before we continue, please like this video, hit the subscribe button, and click the notification bell right now. Number 19. Ernest Hemingway's Six-Toed Cats. Ernest Hemingway, the legendary American writer, was not only known for his literary works but also for his fondness for cats. His love affair with these felines began in the 1930s when he was given a white polydactyl cat, which means six-toed cat, named Snow White by a ship's captain. Polydactyl cats, also known as Hemingway cats, have a genetic mutation that causes them to have extra toes on their paws. This trait, while unusual, does not harm the cats and adds a distinctive charm to their appearance. Hemingway's home in Key West, now a museum, continues to be the home of around 40 to 50 cats, many of which are descendants of Snow White. About half of these cats have the unique polydactyl trait, carrying on the genetic legacy of Hemingway's original pet. These cats roam freely around the property, which makes it not only a haven for those who enjoyed Hemingway's works but also for cat lovers. The cats are cared for meticulously by the museum staff, who ensure they receive regular veterinary checkups, vaccinations, and any medical treatment they might need. The cats even have their own cemetery on the grounds where generations of Hemingway cats are laid to rest. Each cat is given a name, often inspired by famous people, continuing a tradition Hemingway himself started. Number 18. The Unidentified Tank Man. On June 5, 1989, Tiananmen Square in China was filled with pro-democracy protesters. What started as a demonstration became a forum to protest corruption and inflation happening in the national government. Later on, the situation escalated, resulting in the government taking action against the protesters in Tiananmen Square. Among the protesters, a single man stood out, later known as Tank Man, wearing a white shirt and carrying 2 shopping bags. Tank Man became a symbol of resistance against oppression. He first signaled the tanks to stop with a raised hand, then climbed onto the lead tank, attempting to communicate with the crew inside. Despite the tank trying to maneuver around him, Tank Man continually repositioned himself to block its path. This standoff lasted for several minutes before 2 unidentified individuals pulled him away. The identity of Tank Man remains a mystery. Various reports have suggested he was a student named Wang Weilin, but Chinese authorities have never confirmed this. In fact, the Chinese government has claimed they do not know who he is or what happened to him. Tank Man's act of defiance was captured by several photographers, with Jeff Widener's photo becoming the most famous. Despite severe censorship within China, the image of Tank Man standing up to the tanks has become an enduring symbol of courage and the struggle for freedom worldwide. Number 17. Skunk Ape. This photo was sent anonymously to the Sarasota County Sheriff's Office in 2000. It's known as the Myakka skunk ape, or simply the skunk ape. This cryptid is said to be roaming the wilderness of Florida. It's often described as a large bipedal ape-like being covered in shaggy hair, and is said to emit an incredibly foul odor, likened to a mix of skunk and a wet dog. Sightings of this creature have been reported as far back as the early 20th century. One early sighting involved a creature leaping onto a car's running board before disappearing into the swamp. Another report from 1957 described an encounter where a massive, smelly ape disrupted a hunter camp in the Everglades. But perhaps the turning point of the skunk ape's infamy began in the late 1990s and early 2000s. David Shealy, a self-proclaimed expert, claimed to have encountered a skunk ape as a child. This made him interested in its existence. Ever since, he has dedicated his life to documenting and researching this elusive cryptid. In 2000, Shealy captured what he claims as definitive video evidence of the skunk ape, showing a large hairy figure moving swiftly through the swamps. Despite skepticism from the scientific community, Shealy remains convinced of the creature's authenticity. Number 16. Hessdalen Lights. The Hessdalen Lights are strange luminous phenomena observed in Hessdalen Valley in central Norway. These lights typically appear as bright orbs of varying colors: white, yellow, red, blue, and green. They can be seen both day and night and display a range of behaviors from hovering in place to darting rapidly across the sky. What are these lights? What do they want? Do they signify something? And how are they formed? These questions continue to remain to this day. Number 15. Black Knight Satellite. This photo shows what's known as the Black Knight Satellite. The Black Knight Satellite is a hodgepodge of conspiracy theories. The roots of this conspiracy begin in 1899 when the famous inventor Nikola Tesla reported receiving strange radio signals at his Colorado Springs laboratory. Tesla believed these signals were from intelligent beings, possibly from Mars. It's likely that Tesla's claims led to the persistence of the Black Knight Satellite. Years after Tesla's claim, a Norwegian inventor named Jørgen Hals detected long-delayed echoes in 1927. These radio signals echoed back several seconds after transmission, but most of it was left unexplained. Decades later, UFO researcher Donald Keyhoe claimed that the U.S. Air Force had detected 2 satellites orbiting Earth at a time when no country had the capability to launch satellites. This was followed by a series of sightings and detections over the years. In 1960, a radar used by the U.S. Navy picked up a dark, tumbling object in polar orbit, which was unusual because most satellites were in equatorial orbit. The Department of Defense later explained it away as space debris from an Air Force satellite, but this explanation didn't satisfy everyone. The existence of the Black Knight satellite was already cemented long before this photo was captured. In 1998, however, this image was captured during the STS-88 mission to the International Space Station. It shows a dark, oddly shaped object floating in space, which some believe to be the Black Knight satellite. This was the image that further spread the story about the weird alien craft that has been allegedly spying on us since the 1900s. Despite NASA identifying this object as a thermal blanket lost during an extravehicular activity, its reputation as an alien spacecraft persisted. Number 14. Pant-shaped cryptids. In 2007, a resident from Fresno, California, set up a security camera to investigate why his dogs were barking at night. What he found in the footage was both shocking and baffling: a pair of white, pants-like creatures gliding across his front yard. These creatures then became known as the Fresno nightcrawlers. These cryptids are described as having extremely long legs with a minimal upper body, giving them the appearance of walking pants. They move smoothly and fluidly, which adds to their eerie, otherworldly presence. Typically, they appear white or light gray in the videos, enhancing their ghostly look. Some accounts describe them as 5 to 7 feet tall, although the quality of the footage makes it difficult to determine their exact size. Regardless of their size, these creatures will forever be recognized due to their shape, and since the first sighting, many more have been reported. Despite several sightings, whether the Fresno nightcrawlers truly are cryptids or simply hoaxes remains unknown. Number 13. The cadaver who attended a trial. In the 9th century, did you know that a lifeless person was exhumed, dressed in robes, and propped on a throne to face his charges? This was the trial of the Cadaver Synod, a time when a deceased pope was put on trial. The Cadaver Synod occurred in January 897 AD during a turbulent time for the Catholic Church. Pope Stephen VI, the man behind this grisly trial, had a vendetta against his predecessor, Pope Formosus. Formosus had died several months earlier, but that didn't stop Stephen VI from seeking revenge. Now, I won't get into the nitty-gritty, but basically, Pope Stephen VI believed that Formosus disobeyed church laws and committed perjury. So, a trial for him was held in the Basilica of St. John Lateran in Rome. Formosus' decaying corpse was exhumed, dressed in papal garments, and placed on a throne. A deacon was appointed to speak on behalf of the dead pope, but the proceedings were more of a spectacle than a legitimate trial. Pope Stephen VI, filled with rage, screamed accusations at the lifeless body, demanding answers to charges that included ambitious usurpation of the papacy. Formosus was found guilty, stripped of his papal vestments, and had the 3 fingers used for blessings cut off. His body was initially buried in a common grave but was later exhumed again and thrown into the Tiber River. According to legend, the body washed up on the riverbank and began to perform miracles, which only fueled public outrage against Stephen VI. Needless to say, the trial didn't go as Stephen VI had planned. In the end, the trial was one of the reasons he became imprisoned, leading to his death. That's the bizarre story of the Cadaver Synod, and even researchers can't explain the logic behind this rather odd trial. Number 12. A mother with 4 children for sale. This photo was captured in August 1948, showing a grim sign that reads 4 children for sale, along with a mother and her 4 children. This was the truth for some people living below the poverty line. This has been the truth since the 1900s to this day. The woman in this photo was named Lucille. She and her husband Ray Shalafu, a jobless coal truck driver, were facing eviction from their Chicago apartment. With no other options, all they could do was sell their children in hopes of giving them a better chance at survival. The photograph quickly spread across newspapers nationwide, eliciting a massive public outcry and offers of help. Despite this, within 2 years, all of the Shalafu children, including the one Lucille was pregnant with in the photo, were no longer with their parents. With how sensational the photograph got, the public was keen on following the story of the children. The youngest, David, was adopted by a strict but kind couple, Harry and Luella McDaniel. Despite the challenges of his early life, David went on to serve 20 years in the military and worked as a truck driver. Ray and Milton were less fortunate. Sold for $2 to J.N. and Ruth Zoetman, they were subjected to a harsh life and were forced to work on the family's barn at a young age. Their new parents even changed their names, stripping them of their identities and subjecting them to relentless cruelty. Despite the harrowing conditions, Ray and, renamed Beverly, grew up to be a loving mother. Milton went on a rough path before achieving his peace as well. He struggled with the trauma, which manifested in violent outbursts during his teenage years, leading to his commitment to a mental hospital before he eventually moved to Arizona and started a family of his own. Number 11. A big mountain of bison skulls. There were a lot of macabre things that occurred in history. This photo is just one proof. This photograph was captured around 1892 and shows an enormous pile of bison skulls outside the Michigan Carbon Works in Rougeville, Michigan. Decades ago, bison were hunted and sought after in America, particularly in the northern region. At the time, a staggering 30 to 60 million bison roamed the region's wilderness. But by the late 1800s, their numbers were reduced to hundreds. By the time this photograph was taken, the bison population had plummeted to just a few hundred individuals, including a small herd in Yellowstone National Park. This dramatic decline sparked early conservation efforts led by private citizens and later the U.S. government. Thanks to these initiatives, the bison population has rebounded to around 500,000 today, with approximately 30,000 living in protected areas and nature reserves. Number 10. Cooper family photo. No, this photograph isn't edited, or at least that's what the Cooper family claims. This photo is known as the falling body photo or simply the Cooper family photo. There's initially nothing wrong with this picture, with a family smiling happily. That's when you notice the silhouette of a body that seems to be falling from the roof on the left of the photo. This has led to numerous theories ranging from paranormal activity to photographic manipulation. Some believe the photo captures a ghost or a spirit. Skeptics, however, argue that the photo is a hoax. Analysis suggests that the falling body might be the result of double exposure, a common photographic technique where 2 images are superimposed on each other. Despite many people's attempts to debunk the true nature of the Cooper family photo, the truth about this picture remains a mystery to this day. Number 9. Cow shoes used to hide human footprints. As I always say, desperation is the mother of invention. Who would have thought that people would ever need cowprint shoes? Between 1920 and 1933, shoes that left prints in the shape of cow hooves were all the rage. This is all because of one reason: the Prohibition. During Prohibition in the United States, the manufacture, sale, and transport of alcohol were banned. This led to a rise in illicit activities, including the production of moonshine, a high-proof distilled spirit. Moonshiners often operated in remote areas to avoid detection, but they still faced the challenge of hiding their tracks from the authorities who could follow their footprints to the hidden still. And so, moonshiners needed to be creative to outsmart the police. Some moonshiners started using cow shoes. These clever devices consisted of wooden blocks carved to resemble cow hooves, attached to metal strips that could be strapped onto their boots. When worn, these shoes would leave prints that looked like cow tracks instead of human footprints, misleading law enforcement officers and making it harder for them to locate the illegal stills. Number 8. Hook Island Sea Monster. For decades, It's been believed that a giant sea monster resides off the coast of Hook Island, Queensland, Australia. This monster is known as the Hook Island sea monster. This creature was first seen back in December 1964. This monster is allegedly a giant creature with dark skin. Now, not many believed in the existence of this creature until Robert Lucerek and his family managed to capture a photo of the alleged sea monster. The family described the monster as a creature measuring around 75 to 80 feet long with a smooth black body. That's exactly what this photo seems to be showing. However, without any other proof, the identity and the very existence of the Hook Island sea monster remain a mystery. Number 7. Inflatable and decoy tanks. Now, here's one of the things that most people don't know about the Second World War. One of the most valuable parts of the Army was none other than the Ghost Army. Officially known as the 23rd Headquarters Special Troops, the Ghost Army was established in 1944 and comprised about 1,100 men. However, unlike other troops, this group didn't only include soldiers. It included artists, designers, and engineers. You see, this troop was meant to deceive the opposing forces. Their mission was to create elaborate ruses that would deceive the enemy about the size and location of Allied forces. This unit was instrumental in several key operations, using a blend of inflatable tanks, fake radio transmissions, and sound effects to create the illusion of large armies where there were none. In fact, during the lead-up to D-Day, the Allies misled the Germans about the true landing site. They created a fictitious 1st U.S. Army group in southeast England, complete with inflatable Sherman tanks, dummy landing craft, and false radio traffic. This deception made the Germans believe that the main invasion would occur at Pas-de-Calais rather than Normandy, contributing significantly to the success of the actual landings. The Ghost Army contributed to the Allies' other successes, which affected the overall outcome of the Second World War. It's astounding how the Ghost Army even came into existence in the first place. Imagine how history would change had the 23rd Headquarters Special Troops ceased to exist. Number 6. Selling the people what they want. In the 19th century, especially following Napoleon's conquest of Egypt, Europeans developed a fervent fascination with all things Egyptian. This is a period known as Egyptomania. Of course, just like today, merchants and businessmen cater to what tourists call for. At the time, tourists wanted to buy something that was a piece of ancient Egypt itself, like, say, a mummy. Yes, you heard that right. Decades ago, there was a surge in the popularity of Egyptian artifacts, with mummies being among the most sought-after items. Wealthy Europeans and American tourists visiting Egypt could purchase mummies from street vendors, which of course should have been inappropriate in the past. After purchasing a mummy, the wealthy would even carry out mummy unwrapping parties. These events were exactly what they sound like, gatherings where a mummy would be unwrapped in front of an audience. These parties were popular among the elite who viewed them as thrilling and exotic entertainment. But this is not the weirdest part. Some of these remains would even be ground into a powder called mumia and sold as a medicinal remedy, as it was believed to cure a variety of ailments. The sale of mummies went on until the late 19th century. Finally, the Egyptian government decided to step in and place laws to prevent the export of mummies and other ancient Egyptian artifacts. Number 5. A gas-resistant baby stroller. Imagine shopping for a stroller, and one of your options happens to be this. It doesn't really look like a stroller if you ask me. However, amidst the terror of war and looming conflict, parents in the 1930s had no choice but to forego aesthetics and choose what they believed was the safest option for their children. This includes considering these gas-resistant prams or baby strollers. During the interwar period, the horrors of chemical warfare from World War I were still fresh in the minds of Europeans. Poison gases like chlorine, phosgene, and mustard gas had wreaked havoc on the battlefields, and there was a genuine fear that future conflicts could bring these terrifying weapons to civilian areas. As tensions rose in the 1930s with the looming threat of World War II, the public began preparing for the worst. This preparation included equipping civilians with gas masks and developing protective devices for the most vulnerable, babies. These strollers were designed to protect infants from potential gas attacks. They were essentially small mobile gas chambers with a window for the baby to look out and a hand pump to provide filtered air. The idea was to seal the baby inside, shielding them from toxic fumes while still allowing them to breathe safely. But did it work? Well, they did, although they fell out of fashion pretty quickly because they're somewhat morbid in appearance. In fact, they are often compared to being a small metal coffin on wheels. Number 4. Project Pigeon. The ambitious project of developing a pigeon-controlled guided bomb. The war was a time of destruction, but at the same time, it marked the invention of a lot of innovation for the war. Among the many attempts to create the next innovative way of dealing with conflict was Project Pigeon. And yes, it's not a quirky name assigned to a project. This project dealt with literal pigeons. Renowned psychologist B.F. Skinner, who you might know from his works in behaviorism, decided to give a hand to the U.S. military, which at the time had the problem of accurately guiding missiles to their targets. Skinner proposed an unconventional solution, using pigeons to pilot missiles. This project, known as Project Pigeon, sought to harness the pigeon's excellent vision and cognitive abilities to steer bombs accurately. Needless to say, it was an ambitious project. The concept was straightforward but ingenious. Skinner designed a special nose cone for the missile, which housed 3 pigeon-sized cockpits equipped with tiny screens. These screens displayed an image of the target, and the pigeons were trained to peck at the target image to keep it centered. The pigeon pecking movements would then be transmitted into signals that adjusted the missile's course, keeping it on target. Training the pigeons was no small feat. Skinner used operant conditioning, a method he pioneered, to train the birds. He rewarded them with hemp seeds for pecking at the correct targets. Over time, the pigeons learned to associate the target image with the reward, making them highly effective at keeping the missile on course. To improve reliability, Skinner used 3 pigeons simultaneously, ensuring that if one bird made an error, the other 2 would correct it. Despite the project's innovative approach and some initial successes in tests, Project Pigeon faced significant skepticism. The National Defense Research Committee funded the project with $25,000, but military officials found the concept too eccentric to take seriously. And so, the project was ultimately canceled in October 1944, as electronic guidance systems became more reliable and practical. Today, this short-lived project is just one of the many bizarre science endeavors in history. Number 3. A questionable relationship. In 1972, 2 skeletons were discovered at the Tepe Hazanlu site in northwest Iran. They were interred about 2,800 years ago, around 800 BCE. Ever since their discovery, their peace has been disturbed by questions. The 2 skeletons were nicknamed the Hazanlu lovers due to the position they were discovered in. The 2 were found lying in an intimate embrace, seemingly sharing a final kiss before their demise. As the city was set ablaze, the 2 found comfort lying in a grain bin as they shared their final breaths together. For years, the Hazanlu lovers became the symbol of eternal love. Yet, a recent study broke the narrative surrounding these 2. Initially, it was believed that the skeletons belonged to one man and one woman. Recent research, however, seems to dictate otherwise. It seems like both skeletons are men. This ambiguity has fueled various theories about their relationship, ranging from romantic partners to family members. To this day, the true nature of the 2 skeletons' relationship continues to be a subject of debate and speculation. Number 2. That one time people used dynamite on an inflated whale. On the 9th of November in 1970, a 45-foot, 8-ton sperm whale washed ashore near Florence, Oregon. The carcass quickly became a problem due to its size, the stench, and the potential health hazards. The Oregon State Highway Division, tasked with removing the whale, consulted with munitions experts from the U.S. Navy and decided on a rather unconventional solution: blowing it up with dynamite. What could possibly go wrong, right? On November the 12th, a crowd gathered to witness the event, standing about a quarter-mile away from the carcass. Assistant District Highway Engineer George Thornton planned to use half a ton of dynamite, expecting the explosion to scatter the whale's remains into small pieces that could be consumed by seagulls and other scavengers. Needless to say, nothing went as planned. When the dynamite was detonated, the explosion sent a massive column of sand, blubber, and debris 100 feet into the air. Instead of small pieces, large chunks of whale blubber rained down, with one piece crushing a parked car. Spectators, initially awed by the explosion, quickly scrambled for cover as the remains fell from the sky. No one was injured, but the mess, let's just say it's one of the things you wouldn't want to ever experience in person. Now it's time for today's topic. It was in the 1800s when photography made decent progress. Heliography was invented, and in this process, 8 hours of exposure were needed to capture a still image. An entire century has passed, and while photography has made decent progress, it's far from what we can capture today. And yet, in the 1900s, one photograph was captured, a photo so special it changed the course of photography. The mystery of the 1903 photograph is shocking. What you see will give you goosebumps. This photo was captured an entire century ago, and it features the Kolberg Infantry Regiment stationed in Warsaw. This photo merely measures about 42 by 96 centimeters, and yet it captures the faces of some 1,200 men. Even if you zoom in and enhance the photo, the level of detail that such a small image captured is astounding. To this day, just how exactly did the photographer George R. Lawrence manage to accomplish such a feat? The question of how or why this intriguing photo was captured remains a mystery to this day. Number 1. The Solway Firth Spaceman. If you were to guess what this photo shows, I bet you'd say it shows a child and an astronaut behind her, right? But then, how could that be? That's the mystery surrounding the Solway Firth spaceman. This photo was captured on the 23rd of May back in 1964. Jim Templeton, a firefighter and amateur photographer from Carlisle, England, took a series of photographs of his 5-year-old daughter Elizabeth during a family outing to Bergmarsh overlooking the Solway Firth in Cumbria. This was among the developed photos. The photograph, which became known as the Solway Firth spaceman, quickly garnered international attention. It was published in newspapers and examined by various experts, including Kodak, which confirmed that the image had not been tampered with. Some UFO enthusiasts and paranormal investigators suggested that the figure might be an extraterrestrial being or time traveler. However, today more and more people believe that the astronaut in the background was nothing but her mother looking over the view. A person or an astronaut? Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Perhaps there are historical mysteries you'd like us to feature. Feel free to discuss and comment them down below. Also, check out our other cool stuff showing up on the screen right now, and I'll see you in the next video.